I am so jazzed to talk to you because this is a subject that's dear to my heart. Is our oceans and what goes on under because people I don't think really understand how important coral is to maintaining an ocean.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think most people, when they think about coral, they know the beauty of the coral. It's sort of the emblematic sort of when you think about a beach vacation, you're thinking about snorkeling or putting your head underwater and looking at coral fish. But people don't fully appreciate how important they are to life on Earth in general. So there's more species of animals and to some extent plants. There's more species in a square kilometer of coral reef than really any other habitat on Earth, even more than tropical rainforests. So there are places, for example, off the coast of Indonesia called the Bird's Head Seascape or Raja Ampat is another name for it. That part of the world is the most biodiverse place on planet Earth. But more than that, coral reefs basically provide food for about 500 million people. And even for some of us who don't live right by the ocean, if you go to a restaurant or you go to the market and you buy snapper, for example, or grouper or certain kinds of lobster, those fish grew up on reefs, on coral reefs, or spent part of their life cycle eating fish from reefs. So they're very, very important for food. And then they're important for coastal communities. You know, many, virtually all coastal communities, one way, shape, or form, are shaped by the reefs that are offshore. You wouldn't have a Florida coastline. You wouldn't have white sandy beaches in Florida if you did not have a gigantic barrier reef offshore.
Yeah.
So the very existence of these places in America and around the world is really due to coral reefs.
The coral is as important as the honeybee. I mean, it just brings life
Yes.
and sustains us as well as the ocean.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, honeybees are hugely important for agriculture. You know, coral reefs are incredibly important for ocean fish and ocean life. And as I said, they're building blocks upon which many communities literally live on, like literally live on old coral reefs. I mean, Florida is a great example. Florida is actually ancient coral reefs that have sort of solidified into land, which is now what Florida is made up of.
And the Maldives, where a lot of this was a lot of the special was taking place. Um, it's a very interesting show, and the fact that it opened my eyes to some things like coral responds to sound.
Yeah. So that you just nailed it. I mean, that was the single most mind-boggling thing that I didn't know. And I've been a scientist my whole life. I've spent a lot of time on coral reefs. I come from a country, Sri Lanka, that has coral reefs. It turns out that baby coral are sensitive to sound. We should have probably figured this out, but it didn't occur to us because we're such visual creatures when we go underwater.
Mm.
But the underwater world is full of sound. Interestingly, in a lab setting, you can actually train baby coral to go towards, say, jazz,
Mm.
or maybe if you play Taylor Swift, you could get them to go towards that sound. And that's kind of an amazing thing to see in the lab. Now scientists are trying to use this same thing in the ocean, basically putting speakers at the bottom of reefs that they're trying to restore, and then playing the sound of not Taylor Swift, but playing the sound of a healthy reef as a way of attracting baby coral to come back and settle on those reefs. And to me, that's not just mind-boggling in its sort of audaciousness, but it's also kind of cool because it's the only thing I've seen that can allow you to restore reefs at real scale. So you can imagine a kilometer of these speakers strung out across, a whole mile of reef, for example, and then drawing babies in.
Yeah, it's a very interesting moment in this because the coral spawning blew me away as well because you don't think of that when you see coral, and I think a lot of people who aren't used to the ocean and seeing they could just go to the beach don't really realize how alive coral is and how sensitive it is to everything that we humans dump into the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the coral spawn just like anything else. There's sperm and eggs, and they mix in the ocean. They form baby coral that are free swimming animals that eventually settle down. And they usually happens at night. It usually happens in some reefs. It all happens at once. So all the coral do it at once. In other reefs, it's Some do it one night and the others spawn another night. And it's kind of magical to be in the water at that time. The fish are going crazy because they're eating all this egg in the water. And, you're seeing this sort of miracle of life happening before you. But yeah, most people I don't think are, I think oblivious. And even I've read about it. I've very rarely seen it. And in this episode, we film it, which really brings it to life.
As far as audiences, going to PBS and watching this, what do you think they're going to take away from taking a look at this coral special?
Well, I think the first thing I want folks to really appreciate, because this series is called Changing Planet, is that our planet is changing and changing rapidly. And that change we can document not in the scale of decades, but in the scale of days or years. So from year to year, we're seeing change. And that's not, most of the time, that's not good.
Yeah.
We're also seeing people who are doing amazing things, creative things, indigenous communities coming together to come up with a new way to restore, forests. You're seeing scientists who had never met before collaborating on a large-scale coral restoration project in the Maldives. That gives me a lot of hope. And then at the end of the day, I do want people to be entertained, right? I mean, you're not always sitting in front of your screen or television in order to learn. You're also there to be entertained, and I think they'll be entertained.
I think so too, but also the message is, we can all do something. We can all, even if it's donating a little bit or going out and picking up some trash and all of that. I mean, it really, as a human effort, we got to take care of our house.
Absolutely. I mean, government policy makes a big difference. What companies do makes a huge difference, but individuals have enormous power. What goes in your water, how your municipality treats your rivers leads to pollution that ends up impacting a reef. What kinds of fish you eat, trying to eat sustainable fish or fish that is sourced ethically makes a massive difference. And then being very mindful about how you treat coral when you're in the ocean makes a difference as well. So plastic pollution makes a huge difference. So there are many things every day in your life that impact coral reefs that you may never see, but are also going to impact you and certainly impact your kids.
Dr. Sanjayan, it's such a pleasure to meet you and chat with you. I appreciate your time and all your efforts. I know this started as a hobby and now it's, a full-time gig for you, but thank you so much for this lovely chat.